If you need someone to talk to today, please contact Crisis Services Canada by either calling them at 1-833-456-4566 all hours of the day. Or you can text them at 45645 at 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, you're not alone, and Crisis Services Canada is here to help.
Turn it up and up and up. We want it louder, up and up and up. Turn it up and up and up. We want it louder, up and up and up. We're gonna get the music rocking, gonna get the bodies jumping, wanna get the party pumping round here. We're gonna get the walls shaking with the noise we will be making, gonna get the party pumping round here. We fear no fear. To all my brothers, sisters, and here we say, hey, hey, cheers.
Hey, hey, cheers. Gotta love the new intro. Absolutely amazing. Awesome to be here over on ASTV Network, Amateur Sports Network. Great new partnership with the FHN Network. But more importantly, after a couple weeks hiatus, I'm back with my awesome co-host, Ryan Drury, here on the Smoke Show. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Ryan, how you doing today, buddy?
I wish I could say I was doing well. Overall, I'm doing well, but there are some things in the sports world going on right now that we'll dig into later that have really dampened my mood. But overall, I am personally very well. How are you, sir?
You know what? Despite an embarrassing loss for the Leafs last night, I couldn't be in a better mood. So.
Embarrassing's a stretch. I mean, it was a feel-good moment on the other side. I can see why you say that, I guess. But yeah, I understand your feelings. But if you're not a Leaf fan, I guess, it was a cool story. But we'll dig into it. You want to start, though, first with a legend of the game.
With an actual feel-good story.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
With an actual feel-good story. Patrick Marleau set to suit up tonight in his 1,768th game, which will officially eclipse Gordie Howe's games played record. What an absolute amazing accomplishment for, as Leafs Nation got to learn a few years back, an absolute wonderful human being and a heck of a hockey player. So definitely want to throw a huge congratulations out to Patrick Marleau and the Marleau family. His wife Christina is very big on social media. She handles all of that for the Marleau family, and they do a great job of it. But I said feel good story, and I don't know how Patrick Marleau doesn't hold his head high, and this is definitely a career defining moment for him. But how much, will he be able to enjoy this, knowing that perhaps his career ends without a cup?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that's probably something that goes through the minds of everybody in any major sport that doesn't win a title, right? It no matter how great your career individually is, it probably is tougher to look back on knowing that you never won. I mean, you think of legends of the game like Marcel Dion, who many would argue is the greatest player to never win a cup, right? I mean, I think overall that Patrick has done so many cool things. I think the 2 Olympic gold medals help. That definitely eases some of the burden. But yeah, sure, it's tough to look back and all those great San Jose teams that just could not break through, got all the way to the final one year and fell to Sid and Gino and company. Yeah, it's tough to look back probably in the immediacy And I mean, let's not count our chickens here. Patrick Marleau could come back next year. We don't know necessarily that this is his last year. We think it might be. He's 41 years old. And do the Sharks want to give that roster spot to a young guy moving forward? But in the immediacy of it, if it is the end of his career this year, yeah, it will probably sting. But I think as the years go on, he's going to be able to look back proudly on, and he should look back proudly on what amounted to a very, very successful career. And I think the hockey world feels that way about him.
I agree. That's when you hit the nail on the head there, Ryan. I think, if his career were to wind down right now, it'd be a tough pill to swallow, but it's something he'll be able to appreciate as the years go by. I do foresee perhaps seeing Marleau coming in next year, maybe in a Matt Sundin scenario where he stays in shape for the first few months and maybe halfway through the season picks up with a contender. Great time to point out, as we're getting our first comment, we have a whole new operating system here on the Smoke Show. It's absolutely fantastic. We're a little bit more interactive with the fans. So if you're watching right now, you have a question, you want to hop in with a comment, we'll be here. We'll be reading them. We got Tyler McIntosh asking, how many years does Marleau have left? I just don't see how, I can see him finishing this year. I can see him coming back next year, maybe in that Sundin scenario, playing half a season for a contender. But you just watch him playing. The production has dropped off. The feet have slowed down. The hands have slowed down. I don't think he's got much more than maybe half a season left in the tank. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I share that thought, and Tyler, we appreciate your question. Yeah, it's great. Our new setup, fans can be a lot more interactive with us as we ride along, so that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm on the same page, and I actually really like kind of the scenario you laid out. If he does come back, it could be a thing where, kind of similar to what Justin Williams did a year ago. We also saw Mr. Fisher, Mike Fisher, do this a couple years ago with Nashville, where he retired and then decided halfway through, you know what, maybe I want to come back and give it one more kick. And how can you blame guys like that, veteran guys that have a lot of respect? I can't see him having more than one more full season left at best. I mean, like you said, Dark Guy, you broke it all down. I mean, he's just older, and when you get up into the 40s, even the low 40s in his case, it's extremely rare in professional sports to see guys be able to maintain an NHL level, a Major League Baseball level, National Basketball Association level into their 40s and still be an effective member of a roster. I don't want Patrick Marleau to kind of become a novelty item on a roster going forward, especially after he broke this incredible record. Let's be honest, give him all due credit for the longevity that he's been able to push out of that body, playing in the most physical league in the world, not missing a ton of games. This guy's been remarkably consistent. But I just can't see him playing really beyond this year and maybe a bit of next year. But you have to wonder too, with the situation, like I mentioned with San Jose, without sounding disrespectful from their perspective, how much longer do they realistically want Patrick Marleau around? They're a team that really needs to bleed in some young players and have an essential quasi rebuild, even though Erik Karlsson doesn't want that. That's just too bad. It's the reality of the situation. They're not a very good hockey team. So it's probably going to be a double-edged sword. I cannot see him playing past this season.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. Either way you slice it, though, a remarkable career and one that, people will look back fondly on. Moving over to my Maple Leafs.
It's going to be okay, man.
What you said might be a feel-good story for the rest of the NHL.
It is. I mean,
I don't see it that way. Good for them.
Sure.
They came back and won. But that is just so Toronto Maple Leafs, and it's just getting so freaking old. Like,
Yeah.
They had 20 players test positive for COVID. They hadn't played a game in, what was it, 20 days?
Yeah, give or take.
Okay. How do you not take advantage of this? How do you not jump out on that team and walk out of the first period with a 5-0 lead? I get it. Some might say they're rested. I'll look at it on the flip side. They're just coming off of a whole bunch of COVID cases. The whole team was talking about how much it kicked their asses in a lot of cases. And you kind of waltz through the first half of the game, letting them hang around. There was never a whole lot of pressure. Like, that is a scenario where if you have championship aspirations, you have to take a vulnerable opponent, put your foot on the pedal, and drive them into the friggin' glass. Like, you just got to end that game before it starts. I was vocal all over social media last night. It really should have been a Leafs win, but I'm not making any excuses here. Yes, that puck was in. To anybody who can't see that, I say go back to my tweet. You need to go see your eye doctor. It was clear as day from the overhead view. The puck was in the net. But I'm not going to make excuses. The fact of the matter is, it should have never got to that point. You never should have been in that scenario against a team who hadn't played a game in 21 days or 20 days, and a team that just came off of one of the worst pandemic sicknesses that in recent memory. Like, how do you not just take that game over? I'm pissed. I'm frustrated. I watch a game like that, and it's like, how is a team like that going to win a playoff series? Now, I get it's only one game, and I'm usually the positive one here. But I watched that game last night, and how does that team grind it out for a 7-game series when you can't grind it out for one game against the Vancouver Canucks? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I understand why you're upset, of course. Like, I'd be upset if it was my team that lost to that team, right? And I mean, I was pretty upset earlier this week when a team that went through a similar debacle with COVID, albeit earlier in the season, in the Buffalo Sabres, beat my Capitals on Nick Backstrom's 1,000th game night. That was fantastic. Really great treatment of legend of the game. But I digress. Yeah, this is worse, obviously. And like I said, it's a feel-good story for everybody who's not a Leaf fan. I mean, credit to the Canucks. That's a gutsy win. Like, good for you. Everybody will be talking about whether that puck was in or not. I personally think it was in.
There's no thinking. What? Open your eyes, tape your eyelids open if you need to, and watch the overhead replay. You see the puck clear as day. I don't care if you can't see where the goal line is. That was one of the biggest comebacks I got, was what you can't see the goal line. Dude, the puck hits mesh, it's across the goal line.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm trying to kind of understand it from both ways. Like, I understand how it would seem pretty obvious the puck is in, and I think it was in. But I wonder, like, this called up a conversation that I had with somebody in sports from a while back who's a sports scientist. And one of their suggestions was, why can't the NHL go to like some form of clear mesh where it would be easier to see, or even like get rid of the mesh on the top of the net where the camera's looking directly down and make that clear somehow? I'm sure they probably could do that.
Plexiglass or something.
Sensors in the pucks have been talked about for a long time too, obviously, right? So, and they're starting to do that. They're chipping the pucks to track them and everything with this new player tracking technology that they have that I don't think anybody really cares about. Like, I mean, how does it enhance your, I don't know. Me personally, it doesn't enhance my viewing experience to know that Connor McDavid is skating 39 kilometers an hour. Like, I just don't care. You know what I mean?
I don't need to know that. I don't need the speed to know he's going fast.
Yeah. So this is a similar thing, and we've seen it over the history of the game on close goal line calls. The one that it reminded me of the most was, do you remember in the 2002 Olympics, Canada got off to that kind of limping start, and they needed to tie the Czech Republic to ensure that they would have a chance to get to the medal round. And then they beat, I want to say, Finland to get into the next round. But Canada wasn't playing very well, and Dominic Hasek stopped a puck in his glove, and it was right along the goal line. And the question at the time was, it was in the pocket of his glove, which appeared to be all the way over the line. Now, the front of his glove, he had it pinned against the post, but people were saying, well, it's clearly in the pocket of his glove and it's over the line. Pretty sure it was Mario Lemieux that shot the puck, and it would have been his goal. Now, they ended up tying the Czech Republic 3-3 and, of course, went on to win the gold medal anyway. Yeah. But you'll remember after that game, and that was the game Theo Fleury got killed from behind, and Wayne Gretzky had that all-time famous speech about how everybody hates Canada and everything. It reminded me of that. Surely the NHL can figure out a way to determine if the puck is over the line. Like, it's the most basic thing in the game. Like, we have to know it's over. That's how you win games, by tallying goals. I just don't understand how it's this hard now. I don't know. Soccer can't even get it right half the time, and they've got that laser thing over the net like in tennis, and they still botch calls. But yeah, I feel like it was in, but I don't feel like that is a good enough excuse for the Leafs to bail them out of losing this game.
Well, I know that's why I'm kind of diving into it. Is just like, I was mad about the goal. And trying to explain it. I don't know if the answer is they need bigger monitors in the war room. Maybe they're looking on little 13-inch screens, or they're watching on their iPhones. I don't know. I've got a 70-inch TV here in my basement, and I watched the replay once, and it was clear as day. So I don't know. Maybe the answer is the war room needs bigger TVs. But again, that's not the issue here. The Leafs never should have been in that situation. It's becoming very frustrating, to watch those games, and I'm trying not to hit the panic button. The Leafs are 9-3-3 in their last 15 games, so it's a little bit of a catch-22. You don't want to get too high on the highs, you don't want to get too low on the lows. But for me, last night was a low, and you couple that with a few other things that are going on with the Leafs right now. The lack of power on the power play.
Oh, God. Their special teams in general, like their penalty kill's not very good right now either over the last 5-6 games. And I mean, that power play, what are they, 1 for 42 in their last stretch? Like, and that's my point about, you never want to be overly critical, and I'm the type of fan like you where I'm so passionate, and when you lose a game, you kind of like, you want to win so bad, you kind of get up in your own head and blame everybody and this player when in reality a lot of those players are going to eventually probably help you win. But in the moment, it's hard to kind of come down off of being upset, right? But there is some criticism that is just blatantly deserved. And some of these guys that are getting paid a lot of money to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, like, I'm sorry, you've kind of got to answer the bell on this one. Like, your power play can't be that bad when you're paying 3 guys over $10 million to play. It can't be that bad.
I don't necessarily know if it's, some of it is some frustration. When you're getting on the power play now, they're just squeezing the stick. Like, I can't count how many times over the last couple of games I've watched them, and it's like they're forgetting where they're supposed to be, and you end up with 2 guys in the corner right on top of each other. I believe I was talking to you about that the other day on your show. You can't have 2 guys on the half boards within a half foot of each other and then wonder why you're not scoring. Now, is that a coaching problem? Is that a mental problem? I think it's a little bit of both. But when you look at the Leafs power play right now, they've tried a whole lot of different things, but there's been one consistent that they haven't tried changing up. Now, I like the kid. I think he brings a lot to the team, and maybe he just needs a little bit of break to clear his head. But Morgan Riley is supposed to be your power play quarterback, and he's the one guy you haven't changed through all of this. So I'm not saying to take him off the power play forever, but maybe let him watch a couple power plays from the bench and remind him that it's a privilege to be on the power play, not a right. I don't know. Maybe that's a theory. Maybe you try looking at trying a few different things. The scouting books have been out on the Leafs power play for years. I mean, they haven't changed it up a whole lot. They've struggled in the past. They're struggling again now. But for me, the one thing I would try doing is, you know what, maybe for a couple games, take Morgan Riley off that power play. Maybe go with 5 forwards. Do something. Try anything. Because what you've been doing for the last 45 power plays, that you got 1 or I think 2 goals now in 45 power play attempts, hasn't been working. You know, I think that's where a lot of Leafs frustration comes from sometimes too with the coaching staff, whether it was back when it was Babcock or whoever. You know, it's hard to, as a fan, watch this and see no changes being really made. Or if they do change something up, it's for a very short period of time. So, you know what? Maybe think outside the box, because you only got a handful of games here left to figure it out, and then the games really start meaning something.
Yeah, and I understand why people, you know, panic's a strong word, but why people are upset. Like, I get generally in any scenario, whether we're talking about the power play or people are mad at William Nylander or people are angry at all the goalies now. Jack Campbell sucks now, apparently. He's terrible now. Just won 11 straight games. He sucks now. Yeah, I understand Leaf fans. I really do. Because, I mean, how many times do you have to say it? It's just been so long since they've had anything to celebrate. So, like, it's this collective angst through generations. Yeah. I mean, it's similar to what we saw with the Blackhawks. It's similar to what we saw with, not to pick on Chicago, but hey, you ended up winning the Cubs, the Red Sox. Like, when you start experiencing generational disappointment in sports, like, it does something to a fan base. It does something to your psyche where even if a good thing's about to happen, you kind of almost don't believe it. You don't want to let yourself release and enjoy it, because you're just waiting for the next bad thing to happen. Yeah. And I don't know if that's this situation here. Their power play, when it's clicking, is so good. There's so much talent out there. Is this a dry spell? Do they fundamentally need to change the way they approach power plays? I think it wouldn't hurt trying, like you said. Does that mean taking Morgan Riley away? Yeah, maybe. Does it mean putting 5 forwards out there? Risky, but yeah, maybe try it. I think, too, that they need to find a way to get Austin Matthews the puck as much as possible. He's the best player, and I mean, I've seen it for years. The Caps power play might go up and down. They're pretty much top 10 every single year. And when things aren't going well, they pass it over to the big boy from Russia and he claps away. And then one goes in. And then magically, if the power play was sucking for a while and Ovechkin puts one bar down, all of a sudden other guys start scoring on the power play. Oshie gets one. Backstrom has one go off his ass the other day and whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Your best player can dig you out of a lot and can put a shine on things that are a little rusty for you. And I really, for his whole career now, like, really want to see the Leafs emphasize him as point A.
Yeah.
And he should be the guy taking the final shot 75% of the time.
100%.
If it's not him, it better be John Tavares, because he's the second best shooter, I think, pure shooter on the team.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if you want to argue about William Nylander, fine. Like, yeah, he can really let the puck go. But that's kind of what we're talking about here. Like, what's the malfunction? Like, you're all getting paid a lot of money. the scrutiny's going to be there. Like if they were all making $5 million, people wouldn't be this vocal about it. But it's the fact that they've sucked for a while now. People know that they're good and shouldn't be looking this bad. And some of the guys make an awful lot of money and aren't getting it done with a guy missing on the ice on the other team. And yeah, it's troubling. I will say this though, of all the I'm way more concerned about the penalty kill being bad than the power play, because you've seen it in the playoffs the last few years, really over the last decade plus. There have been teams that have absolutely horrible power plays that go on and win the cup. Like when Boston won the cup, their power play sucked. I'm pretty sure they were the last in the playoffs among all the teams. Maybe they finished second last by the time they got to Vancouver and melted them 8-0 that one night. And who else did that? Oh, both Kings teams. The second year they won the cup, their power play was better. But the first year when they snuck in as the 8th seed, their power play sucked. It was awful. Pittsburgh, the one year too, their power play was decent. So it's not a necessity to win, but you would like it to not be 1-42.
Well, and I think part of your when you're going through your synopsis there is one of the least problems. When you're talking about Matthews should be the last shot 70% of the time, Tavares maybe the next 20% and scatter it between a few other players. That's kind of part of the problem right now too. And for a lot of this drought is they're trying to be too pretty. They need to get back to basics and just start firing the puck. Like the start of the game last night, there was a couple times where Mitch Marner is in between the hash marks with nobody between him and the goalie, and he's looking for a pass. I know Mitch is a playmaker, and he hasn't always had the confidence in his shot, even though he's been working on it over the last couple of years, and it has improved. But Mitch, man, dude, fire the damn puck. Like everything doesn't have to be a highlight reel pass. Sometimes you learn this when you're a kid from pee-wee hockey, from Timbit hockey. Put the puck on net. You put the puck on net, good things are going to happen. You're not going to score. Well, you might get a lucky bounce off somebody's skate, but you're not often going to score if you're passing it over and passing it back and just shoot the puck. But as far as the power play, penalty kill is concerned, you look back at what the Leafs did at the trade deadline. I think our penalty kill is probably about to get a major boost in the arm with Nick Foligno coming into Toronto. But before we go down that route, we got Mike Walker asking about the hit on Hyman last night from Alex Edler, which resulted in 2-game suspension for Mr. Edler and the Leafs losing Zach Hyman for 2 weeks, if not longer. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, and he kind of added there, if he doesn't try and avoid it and takes the hit straight on, does he get injured? I mean, that's up for debate, sure, I guess, but there's always the worry that you could get injured worse if you just take the full force of the hit. And at the end of the day, I don't have a lot of time for making excuses for players that knee other players. Now, again, I also don't like walking down the route of going, and I know this probably sounds rich to some people because my team has Tom Wilson on it, but I don't like walking down the avenue of just saying that players intentionally try and injure other players unless it's certain guys. Like we all knew, when our parents were watching hockey, like you knew Ulf Samuelsson was trying to hurt people. You knew Darius Kasparaitis was trying to hurt people, right? I don't think Alex Edler was trying to hurt Zach Hyman.
Yeah.
I think that he tried to line him up for a hit. He saw Hyman kind of moving and he stuck his leg out. And lots of guys do this and it's instinctual. You want to get a piece of the guy, and Edler was gassed, whatever. Like, make whatever excuses you want. He'd been out there for 3+ minutes, 3:02, I think, when he got the penalty. Like, you can't do that. It's a dirty play. I don't think Edler's a dirty player, and he got suspended, and rightly so. He got a 2-game suspension, and that feels about right. To my knowledge, he doesn't have a suspension history, or in the very least isn't qualified as a repeat offender under the league's weird rules. Who even knows what they are now anymore? The league just makes stuff up half the time, it feels like. But my thoughts on it are very simple. It's a dirty play. I don't think he's a dirty player, but he made a mistake and he got punished for it. And that sucks for the Leafs because, man, we've talked about Hyman a lot on this show, and rightly so. He's kind of the heartbeat of that team. Like he is the symbolic engine of, literally the little engine that could. This is a guy that, by all intents and purposes, should not have made it to the NHL, but he did. And losing him for any amount of time, hopefully a short amount of time, is going to be even tougher now for a Leafs team that's grasping at straws.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? Like, it's tough to swallow that it's a guy on a team that's not going to make the playoffs, that's taking, your guy out for 2+ weeks, and they're only getting a 2-game suspension on there. And we've talked about it a lot on this show, lots on our other show back over the years. I don't know what the right answer is for the player Department of Player Safety. I don't want to see things go too crazy, but it's a real tough pill to swallow, knowing that Edler's only missing 2 games, and Hyman, who is such a valuable part to our team, is now lost for 2 weeks, if not longer, on what should have never happened. So I don't know. I'm not as forgiving to say that, he didn't do it on purpose. I don't know. This is not Edler's first brush-in with the NHL Player Safety Department, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, he did get suspended, I think, a few years ago for hitting someone from behind, and I want to say it was against the Blackhawks. And again, I'm not going to look it up. I think you're right. He's definitely been suspended before. I don't know how recently, but I feel like back in those Canucks Blackhawks days when that was a blood feud. Yeah, I understand your position there. Whether he did it on purpose or not, I don't know that he was, trying to explode his ACL or anything like that. And that's the same knee as well that Hyman had surgery on last year. So yeah, that's troubling, right? But he got at least he got suspended.
I would say absolutely.
Thank God he at least got suspended, because it's just a dirty play. It's one of those plays where when a hit happens and someone obliterates somebody, or a guy turns into the boards at the last minute, or a fight happens and someone gets KO'd, you're a little bit more accepting of it because you kind of go, well, at least something that's kind of part of the game was occurring. I'm not saying that high hits or anything, and my buddy Tom Wilson's been guilty of many of them and been heavily, heavily punished for them. It's funny how other guys don't, though. Ryan Reeves killed that poor kid on the Coyotes the other day and took his chin off, and no one made a peep about that. Yeah. I digress. At least they suspended him, because this, I've always said that kneeing is so dirty. It's such a dirty play. And we saw this with Vincent Lecavalier. Remember when he had that knee and ankle injury in, I want to say, the first year back from the lockout? He was never the same. Vinny Lecavalier was never the same after that. And we've seen tons of other guys have knee injury. Cam Neely, I brought up Ulf Samuelsson earlier, might be the most famous knee in NHL history. He destroyed, but he stole potentially a decade of unbelievable play from the Boston Bruins and Cam Neely personally. It's such a dirty play. Kneeing and hitting people from behind head first into the boards are the dirtiest plays in hockey, and you almost rarely see them get punished. And thank God they at least suspended him in this instance, because it was so blatant. It was completely obvious that he wasn't able to line Hyman up. And to Michael's question earlier about, him trying to dodge the hit. Well, yeah, no one wants to get run over, and Hyman sees him and kind of jukes out of the way. That doesn't give Edler the right to stick his leg out and take his ACL apart. like there's no real excuse for that play for me. And I'm glad they at least suspended him. Some people, it doesn't matter what the suspension is. Some people are always going to want more at one extreme. Some people are going to say it wasn't a suspension at all at the other extreme. No one's ever going to agree. I think pretty much everybody would be on the same page that he deserved a suspension, and at least they gave it to him.
100%. I just realized how many times I've said 100% this show.
It's 100%. Great to be back. We're at 120% here.
That's I'm 100% stoked.
What else? What else do you have on the docket here?
Well, we're gonna get into a topic. We're gonna get into a topic that I know you're passionate about. Before we do, I was gonna say, what is this? Is this reverse day? You're wearing the Blue Jays colors, and I got the Oakland A colors on. I mean, it's a downtown Magneto shirt. I have to shout out to my friends out there. It's a fairly popular shirt. But what's going on here? I got the A's colors on. You got the Jays colors on. Have you jumped ship already? Or are you sailing the vessel? You're no longer an A's fan?
No. It's nothing like that. Like I'm a Jays fan as well. Like I've always watched baseball, but I only kind of recently over the last year and a bit got really into it.
Yeah.
And I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that. There's just nothing on, and you're like, well, let's check out baseball. And now I'm really into it. I want the Jays to do well. They're not my number one team or anything. I'm cheering for the A's, and hey, everybody should be cheering for the A's. 8 straight. Thank you very much. But yeah, I want the Jays to do well. But I'm glad you're sporting the A's colors. I feel like even though you didn't, subconsciously you did it for me. And so I
did it in support, Ryan. I did it in support. You're always there for me. I figured I'd be there for you.
That's a friend.
I think I'm going to segue into this, and then I'll just put my mic on mute and walk away.
No.
But don't forget, if you're watching the show, you can hop on here. It's new, interactive. You can leave your comments, ask any questions. Ryan and I will be happy to answer them. We've already got some great questions from some of the viewers tonight. Tyler, Mike, thank you. Much appreciated. But unless you've been living under a rock, and apparently I had been for the last couple of days because Ryan had to tell me what was going on with this. You are fully aware of the mass exodus from the European League to what's now being tabbed as the Super Elite League. Is that what it is? They were calling it Super Champions League.
It's just they're calling it the European Super League.
That's what it was. My apologies. But you got the 12 of the richest franchises in European football. Basically have decided that they want a little more control of the money, TV deals, and everything else, and are deciding to part ways with their current situation and form their own league. I know Ryan's a little bit heated about this, so Ryan, take it away.
Man, I don't even know where to start. And to be fair to you, like, you haven't been living under a rock. This broke like a day ago. And there had always kind of been rumors about it, that the biggest clubs in Europe would form this Super League, and no one ever really took it seriously because it's an asinine idea, and I'll dig into why. This broke about a day ago, at the conclusion of a Manchester United game. And Gary Neville, who's a very well-known pundit over there, former United player, won everything there is to win in football, bar a World Cup, because England never wins. And he basically came on after hearing that it had leaked that an announcement was coming about this actually happening, and he tore it apart. He was so upset. He lambasted his own club, his boyhood club that he played for and achieved great things for in Manchester United. If I can spell this out for everybody, and I know we're living in a region of the world where soccer, football, what have you, is not the main point of focus for a lot of people. But it is the biggest game in the world. It's the most lucrative sport in the world by a landslide. And I think everybody and all of our viewers, I think, would be familiar with what the Premier League is. And the Premier League is the top league in England. And in European soccer and South American soccer, leagues all over the world, they have a relegation model where there's the top league and then typically the bottom three, or some leagues, depending on their size, bottom two, get relegated down to the lower league, and a couple teams from the lower league get to go up, which is a big deal because especially with something like the Premier League or La Liga in Spain, where Barcelona and Real Madrid play, or Serie A in Italy, where Juventus and AC Milan play.
Inter Milan, yeah.
Inter Milan as well. They're part of this debacle, those three Italian teams. When you go up a league, your club now has access to a huge injection of cash based on the TV deals that are held worldwide, because there are networks worldwide that pay for the rights to air Premier League games, La Liga, the German league. All of that money gets collected into a pool and it's distributed amongst the clubs. Now, obviously, the clubs that do really well and finish way up at the top and draw tons of viewership in get more money. But for a club to go from the second league to the top league, that injection of cash is enormous. It means people get to keep their jobs. It means more investment potentially into their youth academies, especially if you're a smaller club coming up. And that means that you can invest more money in scouting young players and potentially then selling them off to bigger clubs to keep yourself out of debt, basically. Like, there's just so many benefits to it. And I will explain to you now why this has got me more heated than almost any sports happening in my entire life. And I can't, for people that are watching this that aren't big soccer fans, I don't know that I can adequately underline how obscene this is to wrap your head around. So the six biggest clubs, revenue-wise, fan base-wise, if you will, in England are my beloved Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City, Tottenham, Arsenal, and who am I forgetting? Oh, of course, Liverpool. I think most of our viewers are probably at least familiar with the names of those clubs. Manchester United, in particular, has consistently polled as the most valuable sports franchise on earth. These greedy morons that own these clubs, and make no mistake about this, this is owner driven. And many of the owners of these clubs are American, or in the case of my team, Chelsea, are owned by a Russian oligarch who has had so many controversial things happen that he's not even allowed in the country of England. These clubs, the six big Premier League clubs, the clubs I mentioned from Spain, Barcelona, Real Madrid, I'm sure everybody knows who they are. Messi plays for Barcelona. Ronaldo played for Real Madrid forever. Now he's in Juventus in Italy, who are part of this, along with AC and Inter Milan. Those clubs want to break away from their respective leagues and create this new thing called the European Super League. Now, what is that? Well, basically what it is a fixed competition, and fixed in more ways than one, fixed in terms of the competitiveness and fixed in terms of getting to stay there. These 12 clubs want to create this league where there's no relegation, so there's no real competition happening. It's the same 12 clubs. They want 3 more member clubs, founding member clubs, they're calling them, to join, which is going to be impossible because the backlash off of this is insane. They want 3 more founding member clubs, and those 15 clubs would stay in this league in perpetuity. No relegation, no real reason to do better. You just get to stay because you founded the league. And then every year, they'll let 5 clubs from around Europe qualify to join the league. And This is so dangerous because, go ahead.
Sorry, Ryan. What you're saying, but argumentatively speaking, are they not actually kind of guaranteeing a higher level of product? You're talking about the top 12. You're talking about the top 12 teams that are never scared to go out and spend the money to get the players. You got the top 12 teams that will do what it takes to put a product on the field that's going to win you a championship. Like if you look at the collective championships over the last 15, 20 years between a Chelsea, a Manchester United, Liverpool, like you're talking some massive championships here. Then when you start throwing in your Juventus and AC Milan, Inter Milan, and you're talking the best football clubs in the world.
To a degree,
be a little more of an entertaining product where you don't even have to worry about watching a stacked team play against a relegation team.
I'll tell you exactly why I disagree with that notion. Because the whole point of these leagues, these domestic leagues like the Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, is so that those teams that don't have that big roster and big budget and big ownership can go up against those teams and potentially reap some benefit out of being part of that league. If these teams all are allowed to splinter off of leagues that they have been part of for literally 150 years in some cases, particularly with the English clubs. Juventus, I think Juventus was founded in like 1897 or something, like historically significant clubs, and their brand power works for the rest of the league. If they're allowed to go off and join this other league, what the hell is the point of having the rest of soccer leagues exist? Because the money that trickles down from the broadcasting rights and also with things like the Champions League, like the European Super League, it already exists. It's called the Champions League, and you have to earn the right to get there. And I'm glad you brought up saying, oh, look at all the trophies between Liverpool and Manchester United. Liverpool and Manchester United have sucked for like 10 years. Manchester United is dead, and now they're more dead. Do you realize that Manchester United, after Sir Alex Ferguson retired and won one more league title, they haven't won anything since? They've won a couple lesser European cups and everything. No one cares. They're Manchester United. Their fans demand the best. And their ownership group is a disaster. Joel Glazer and the Glazer family are American pigs. And they're not pigs because they're American. Let me just say that. They are greedy American pigs that do not care about supporters. They don't care about the history. They don't care about Old Trafford where they play. And they don't care about the legacy of that great club. Liverpool, up until 2 or 3 years ago, was a laughing stock on the global stage. What a precious, beautiful club of people that care so much about soccer, football, whatever, and love cheering for Liverpool. They were so bad through the mid-2000s, and really you could argue the 90s to a degree as well, other than winning a couple European Cups, Champions Leagues, domestically, they couldn't do anything right. They were owned by an American conglomerate that did not care about the team and wouldn't invest properly in players. Then Fenway Sports Group and that idiot John Henry bought them at a discount a few years back. When did they buy them? I want to say 9 years ago. The former American owners of Liverpool were so bad and so neglectful of the incredible Liverpool, to give you context, is the most successful English club of all time. Most league titles, most European Cups. They are the crown jewel to many of English soccer.
Yeah. Sorry, Brian, when you're just looking at the championships, so you're looking at Manchester U, Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Tottenham. Between them, they have 10 Championship League, 10 UEFA Champions League.
UEFA.
and 26 English championships since 1993.
That's right. And in 93, that's when they formed the Premier League. It used to just be called the English League, the top flight. Then they formed the Premier League, and a ton of money was flooded in for broadcasting rights, and good for those teams. But only a couple of them were good. Manchester United lorded over the Premier League for like 20 years. Now they're terrible. They're terrible. They are embarrassing. And Liverpool was worse.
So, and then you combine that with Real Madrid and FC Barcelona, who have combined to win 18 Champions League titles. So, I mean,
I know, but that's the problem, though. I have no problem with the big market teams in what is essentially a free market in Europe. There is no salary cap. They've kind of sort of designed one to a degree called FIFA Fair Play, where you can only invest in players a certain amount of your previous year's revenue. It's helped, I don't know, marginally, because you're right. The big clubs like Real Madrid and Barcelona and Juventus and Chelsea and whatever, they're always going to have more money than we think anyway, than Crystal Palace or Fulham. Yeah. But those clubs, you are essentially signing a death sentence for the existence of those other clubs and the entire model of player development in a country like England, where young players, like, take this into a hockey context. We just talked about Zach Hyman and gushed over how great he is. A guy like Zach Hyman in soccer will not exist if this is allowed to happen. The money that is made on the TV deals that is shared throughout the leagues amongst all the teams that all benefit from it, not just 6 from England or these 12 greedy pig mafia organizations from across Europe. Everyone benefits. Do those clubs benefit more because they have a bigger fan base and are able to buy Cristiano Ronaldo for 100 million euros? Yes, fine. But they have to earn winning those titles. Yes, Real Madrid has won more European Cups than any other team ever. They had to beat people to do it, and they weren't guaranteed to win. You are taking all of the magic and incredible stories out of sports. A few years ago, you'll remember in 2015, Leicester City were 5,000 to 1 to win the Premier League, and they won it. That will never happen again. You are taking, by letting these 12 clubs and their 3 theoretical friends that make up this 15 that they want are allowed to compete in this league every year, where they reap all of the money. And by the way, the payout structure, these teams are all going to be entitled to like 180 million euros just for showing up. That's not competition. And letting 5 random clubs that you select, that coincidentally will definitely be the 5 clubs that aren't the best, but make the most money the previous year. So it adds to their greed pool. Allowing 5 random clubs that made a bunch of money so you can line your pockets more is not competition. So
I'm gonna Ryan.
Go ahead.
Here's I'm playing devil's advocate because I love it. Back when we as hockey fans suffered through a couple lockouts as the players and owners went to battle over a salary cap. What was your stance in that whole scenario? Remind me. I don't remember. Are you in favor of the salary cap? Against it?
I was okay with it if it meant that we got hockey back. But okay. I hated the owners.
So you know, the salary cap, essentially, when it boils down to it, was all about the greed of the owners in hockey. I don't care how anybody wants to slice it. Bettman wants to spin it as a competitive balance, blah, 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 blah.
You're right.
The end of the day was NHL owners started to see where the NHL players' salaries were going, and they tried to get out in front of it before it got out of hand. This was all about lining the pockets of the owners.
Yeah.
As it's developed, it's become more of a salary sharing and stuff like that. So yes, there has been benefits to it, but the bottom line here is this all started with the greed of the owners. And a lot of people who, you know, I've had this conversation with over the years, praise Gary Bettman for putting the salary cap in and everything, saying he saved the league and he saved the Arizona Coyotes and yada, yada, yada. I don't care. This started as greed. This started about money. If it was okay in hockey, what is wrong with 12 teams not wanting to share the wealth that they're generating, say, 80% of?
Yeah.
Those TV deals are not to watch those. They're not paying the big bucks for the relegation games. Those TV deals are because people want to see Juventus. People want to see Real Madrid. So what is wrong with them wanting to keep the money that they're making in their pockets instead of having to share it with everybody?
I'll tell you exactly why, because the salary cap didn't destroy the competitive nature of hockey. The Carolina Hurricanes can still win the Stanley Cup. The Toronto Maple Leafs, just because in the salary cap structure, which doesn't exist in most European sports, the Toronto Maple Leafs, we know this, are the most valuable franchise in the NHL. Do they win the Stanley Cup every year and just automatically get a playoff berth? That's what this is. This is 12 clubs going, I matter more than the game. 12 owners, I should say. This is not on the clubs and the staff and the people that keep these clubs going and the players especially. There's no way they're for this, because FIFA and UEFA, that runs the Champions League, FIFA, of course, the governing body of world soccer, and they run the World Cup. They are threatening extremely heavy sanctions. Any players on these teams, if this goes through, will not be allowed to compete in the Champions League or play for their national teams. Every year, there's something, and world football is huge everywhere. Everybody loves soccer all around the world. Every year, there's a tournament called the Africa Cup of Nations, and it is the biggest thing to happen in Africa every year ever. There's not a chance that a single African player is going to want to play for one of these teams if it means that they cannot represent Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Egypt. The best player on Liverpool FC, Mohamed Salah, he's Egyptian, and he loves playing for his country.
Yeah.
This is why it's different than the salary cap. The salary cap did not guarantee that the richest clubs, and we saw it early on in the salary cap days, the Boston Bruins were a laughing stock. They sucked. The New York Rangers have been terrible for a while. They're richer than everybody, but it doesn't mean that they automatically get into the playoffs. Making this Super League and allowing these big owners, I got to stop myself from saying clubs, these owners are essentially taking all the resources away from their leagues. And you mentioned earlier, people want to watch Real Madrid. People want to watch Real Madrid, and the majority of Spain that hates Real Madrid, that cheers for Atletico Madrid, Villarreal, all those teams, they want a chance to see their team beat the mighty Real Madrid in the Spanish Cup, in the Copa del Rey. They want to beat Barcelona in the Champions League and have an unbelievable night.
I think Atletico was one of the teams going with them, were they not? Because there was 3 Spanish teams going.
You might be right. Yeah, it might be Atletico as well. So screw them. Pardon me then. Or Celta Vigo or Real Betis. I remember a couple of years ago, Real Betis beat Barcelona 3-1, and it was like the biggest thing ever. Like, people were partying in the streets. All that is dead now. Yeah. That is dead. And the player development is dead. Players will not be able to get into these clubs. All the other clubs won't be able to recruit good players. And having a league where you automatically get to stay in it, in a sporting structure in Europe that is based on relegation and promotion, which I explained earlier is such a big deal. When you get promoted, it's such a big day for your club. In England, we see it all the time. I remember Aston Villa, who won the Champions League back when it was just called the European Cup in the 80s. A beloved English team. They fell on hard times. They couldn't do anything right to get into the Premier League. They finally got back into the Premier League, and it was such a big deal. It was a beautiful story of this scrappy club that finally got its act together. Liverpool, a team that never got relegated out of the Premier League, were a joke for years under that old American ownership. And because the American ownership was so bad, the fans forced them out, and Fenway Sports Group and John Henry bought Liverpool for a dime of what it's worth. And they started investing money in it, and now it's worth 8 times what they paid for it. And now they want to go, well, we're going to take all that and leave. Like, you mentioned the relegation battles too. That's a huge event in every country. If your team is involved in a relegation fight, staying in the Premier League, for instance, or La Liga in Spain, what have you, staying in the top league, like I explained earlier, is such a big deal. And when it gets down to crunch time and you know that 2 points could save you on the final day, millions of people watch that. I know I do.
I agree. Like, I love the relegation round of the World Juniors. I love it. I love knowing that. I love knowing that teams are fighting to come in and teams are dropping out. But when you're talking about who's watching that in football, like, chances are, if you're one of the millions of fans of one of the top teams in the league, you don't really care. You're not probably tuning in to see who's getting relegated.
I don't agree with that, simply because of the structure of what the sport is over there. It's a foreign idea, literally and figuratively, to people in North America because we have salary caps or luxury taxes or whatever. It's not that over there. The market is already open and free. Real Madrid can spend $100 million on one player. And Celta Vigo down the road can't. But Celta Vigo could show up to the Bernabeu Stadium in downtown Madrid in King's Square and beat Real Madrid and embarrass them. That's part of the beauty of sport. You don't create leagues and take all the money away from everything that's been built over years, hundreds of years of legacy and hard work. People care about watching their club against the big clubs in their country. And let's be honest here, calling it the Super League is a bit ironic when you're involving clubs like Tottenham and Arsenal. I know this is a little much coming from a Chelsea fan. Dude, I've been watching the Premier League for 17 years. I've been a Chelsea fan. I love this club. I am disgusted with Roman Abramovich and the ownership group for agreeing to this. If they do this, I am done. I will not be a Chelsea supporter anymore, because what they are trying to do is bastardize the sport for 6 or 7 rich ownership groups, or 12, and take away the competition. The very spirit of competition is being killed here. You don't just get to go into a league and dictate the rules and say, we get to stay the entire time and make all the money, and no one else ever gets a chance to do that. Gary Neville said it best, and I encourage anybody that's a soccer fan to look the video up of him. This is a criminal act being perpetrated by a mafia of rich pigs, and they are trying to steal the game from us. They are trying to steal it.
In the grander scheme of things, Ryan, I mean, how realistic that this actually happens and gets off the ground do you think it is? Because the chips are already starting to fall. UEFA officials have basically saying that they're expecting Man City, Chelsea, and Real Madrid to be kicked out of the Champions League for their involvement in this. I mean,
good.
How realistic in the end, for multiple reasons, for teams getting kicked out of the Champions League, for teams that might get kicked out of Premier League, for players, like you said, with Africa, Nigeria, who might not want to risk going to play for one of these teams because of World Cup implications and everything else. I mean, realistically, do you see this happening?
I don't, and the only reason I don't is to echo what Gary Neville, like I said, and guys like Jamie Carragher, who was a beloved Liverpool player, now retired and is a TV pundit over there, and Gary Lineker, who actually coincidentally was a great English player and played for Barcelona, all said, This, I don't think it will happen because the backlash has been so sharp and pointed, and the fans are not going to stand for this. We already saw, and it's unfortunate because of COVID and everything going on, people gathering outside of Old Trafford protesting this. Manchester United fans, a club that stands to benefit financially from this, but who cares? The beauty of European football in the Champions League is you don't play Real Madrid every year. You don't play Juventus every year. And it's a joy when you do, because it's two big clubs coming together on a big stage trying to compete and win the Champions League. I don't want to play Juventus every year. I don't want to play AC Milan every year. I certainly don't want to play Arsenal and Tottenham every year outside of the Premier League. Arsenal's a joke. Super League? Arsenal's in 10th. They're in 10th. How is that? Like, if it put West Ham in there, they're better than Arsenal. But that idiot Stan Kroenke that owns the Colorado Avalanche and I think the Rams too, he owns Arsenal and he doesn't give a runny crap about them or the fans. He just wants to line his pockets. He doesn't care about competing against Real Madrid every week. This is a power play. And I don't think it will happen because the English government's already getting involved. Prince William, who is the president of the Football Association, is saying they will take whatever measures are necessary. And even if this doesn't happen, if the clubs, not the clubs, pardon me, the owners all say,
I think you meant rich pig owners.
Rich pigs, they are. They're all on a yacht somewhere in Russia sipping Roman Abramovich's caviar.
The smoke show right now, though.
Yeah, I hope they are, because I hope you enjoy sucking caviar out of each other's ass cracks, because this is a joke. I'm serious. This is a joke. I have never been so angry about anything in sports in my entire life. Dark Eye, this essentially would be like the original 6 teams in the NHL splitting away from the NHL and going, well, we're just going to play in our own league and never play anybody else ever again. If some people like that, okay, I think that's dumb. It reverses. If the whole point of sports is to get as many people to like your sport as possible and grow the game, we hear this token phrase all the time, grow the game. This isn't growing the game. This is growing rich pigs' bank accounts, and they're taking your passion. And for anybody watching this, that might be a Chelsea fan. I've been a lifelong Chelsea fan, a Liverpool fan, a United fan, a Barcelona fan. They are trying to take from you what makes your sport and your league great. I don't want to play those teams all the time. I want it to be special when we play Real Madrid. Chelsea right now are in the they just advanced to the semifinals of the Champions League. Now I want them kicked out. I love that club. I love the players. I love the coach. I want them to win the Champions League. If this doesn't happen and they backtrack or whatever and say, oh, what needs to happen is Sky Sports, BT Sports, ITV, all the big broadcasters need to take a stance and say, we're not going to broadcast this. And if that takes the government getting involved, fine. The Spanish government has already said they're not going to let this stand. Same with England. UEFA, if this doesn't happen, which, to answer your question long-windedly, I hope that it doesn't, and I don't believe it will because of the backlash. But even if it doesn't, the balls that were shown by these 12 rich pigs, and I want to say shout out Germany. Bayern Munich and Dortmund are 2 of the biggest teams in the world. They said, we're not going to do this. And you know what?
There were some other complications with them possibly wanting to leave too, right? Because I had read that not only were they not going, it was a little bit more difficult for them to go, and I don't remember exactly why. So
I'll tell you.
It's not as much of, hey, good for them. There was some other complications involved as well.
Well, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, who is the president of Bayern Munich, said, we are opposed to the league. And it would be harder for them. Whether you want to take that at face value or not, it would be harder because the German league, and give props to the Germans, man, do they make great cars and stuff. They also make great football. They have a rule in the German league where every single club has to be 49% owned by fans.
That's right. That's what it was. Yeah.
And fans get to sit at the board meetings, and the fan clubs all elect either a president or a governing body that represents the fans, and they sit in the meetings with the club representatives and decide how finances are doled out. Germany is the only league of the big European leagues to fix away ticket prices. I believe it's fixed. You can't charge away fans, I think, more than 20 euros. It's 20 euros to go see your team play Bayern Munich or Hoffenheim or Dortmund. It's incredible. They treat their fans so well, and they don't want to be a part of this. And props to them. I have never been so upset in my life. I honestly, like, I could cry right now. I'm hurt. I'm hurt because I remember some of my fondest memories when I first started getting into football, soccer, were Didier Drogba was my favorite player ever. I have his book somewhere here. Here it is right here. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I have his book here. This man overcame incredible odds to become a Premier League star, and obviously awful racism. And this book's incredible. And these owners are trying to crap on that and take that away from me. And take away. I remember Chelsea's only won the Champions League one time. They finally did it after coming so close in 2012. I fell to my knees and cried in my living room. It was so amazing. I remember when they first won the Premier League. All of that means nothing now. They are taking the legacy of these great clubs and using them to monopolize the sport and take money away from you, from me, from every football fan on earth, and monopolize it into this little 12-team money pot where there's no real competition because you get to show up every year. There's no incentive to be better. There's no incentive to treat fans better. There's no incentive to drop ticket prices. This is a disaster, and I am hurt. And that's all I have to say. I'm sorry about the soccer rant.
No, hey, that's okay. And you know what? Now that I played asked you some devil's advocate questions to keep it going, I do have to ask, what do you think? Over the last few years, the conversation about it has very much kind of disappeared. But I don't think it's ever going to go away. About the event, the inevitability of a European team joining the NHL. And when I kind of look over to soccer and how it's set up with the Premier League, Champions League, relegation, I can't help but wonder what the feasibility of something very similar to that could be or could look like in hockey. Because there are aspects to, while I was being a little devil's advocate with you, I like the idea of if your team sucks for X amount of years, you don't get to stay in the league, Buffalo Sabres. If you can't figure it out, move over and get out of the way because somebody's coming up behind you who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't mind the idea of that. I just got to ask you, what do you think the feasibility of that is?
I think the feasibility of it, given the current state of the global economy and just how logistically difficult it would be, is extremely low. Would there be an appetite potentially for players like the Stanley Cup champions play the Gagarin Cup champions or something like that? Maybe. I mean, the players already play a lot of games. And this is a broader conversation too, right? I mean, there's always been that joke about, the Sabres, the Coyotes. I mean, if we had relegation here, they'd get relegated. And they would. And maybe that would be interesting. But I think that, the way North American sports operates with a fixed league that is still competitive, next year, the Arizona Coyotes could win the Stanley Cup. They could. We don't know. It's no guarantee. My team has been good for like 15 years now. They've got one Stanley Cup to show for it. That's good.
I'm going to stop you there. I can say with 100% certainty that I know the Coyotes are not winning the cup next year.
Okay, I know why you're saying that, but I think people probably said the same thing about the Hurricanes and the Lightning. Like it happens. When the Kings got in 2012, people were like, Vancouver's going to sweep them. Or they didn't play Vancouver first, did they? It doesn't matter. No one said that the Kings were going to win. They were like, oh, they're the 8th seed. They're going to get dummied. I picked them to get swept in my hockey pool. I know for sure I did. But then they didn't. And they went on this magical, incredible run that invigorated the Kings fan base that had waited 45 years, was it, to finally win. They thought they'd do it with Gretzky. Sorry to bring that up. They thought they'd do it with him. It didn't happen. They couldn't win the cup with the greatest player ever. And then finally, this miracle 8th seed that wasn't supposed to go anywhere snuck in and won the whole damn thing. But imagine that wasn't allowed to happen.
Yeah, I'm just saying the Coyotes are not no.
I know.
The gong show that is the Coyotes right now. I can say with certainty they're not winning. That's like,
but I know why you're saying that, because no one loves ripping on the Coyotes more than me. But to tie this back to the thing going on with this European Super League garbage, it's a crime, is what it is. I'm sick and tired of rich owners of sports teams treating their fans like crap. We see it time and time again. It doesn't matter what sport, baseball, hockey, football, it doesn't matter. Stan Kroenke, I brought him up earlier. He moved the Rams away because they wouldn't build him a stadium or something. What a crybaby. That guy's an idiot. I'm sick and tired of owners treating sports fans like this. They take our passion and they bastardize it and they line their wallets with it. And if I could stay on track, because my mind is racing, the Coyotes, I know everybody would go, oh, the Coyotes, there's no way they're winning the cup. And yeah, I don't believe there is either. But wouldn't it be outside of our selfishness of going, no, I want the Capitals to win, I want the Leafs to win, outside of our selfishness, how incredible would it be if they won the cup? It would be unbelievable.
This is where I would disagree 100%. Because at what point in time...
How would that not be an incredible story, though?
For me, well, I'm looking at the salary cap. And part of the reason why the soccer teams are wanting to leave is money-based. Well, part of all of it.
It's all of it.
It's all of it. But at what point in time, as a business owner, do you not look at the Phoenix Coyotes and say, I'm making them exist? Like, at what point in time,
I know,
is it not maybe better for the game to lose a team or two that all the other teams have to support year after year after year? Like, I don't think it would be amazing for the Coyotes to win next year, because if it wasn't for the New York Rangers revenue, the Toronto Maple Leafs revenue, the Montreal Canadiens revenue, like, if it wasn't for those teams, Arizona would be gone.
I know.
Would probably be gone. I don't want to see them win after years of mediocrity and no support. All of a sudden they hit the freaking lottery and luck out winning a year. No, that's BS. These teams shouldn't even be in the league. They probably should have been folded. They're riding off the coattails. Their whole existence is because of profit sharing.
I understand.
To be rewarded with a chance at the cup.
I understand exactly why you feel that way, but the passion that you just showed in explaining why you hate it is exactly why things like that need to be allowed to happen. I don't want the Coyotes to win. I hate their organization, and I hate Gary Bettman for keeping them afloat. I can't deny that it would be an incredible story, not even necessarily incredible good, incredible bad. We would have a field day on this show, the Smoke Show, with Dark Guy and Drury if they ever won the cup for these reasons. But they're allowed to win. They don't show up. They're allowed to exist. The other teams, as much as they might gripe about it, agree to keep them afloat. And so there they are. It's another potential revenue source, and they should fold. You're right. But that's another problem that's outside of the Super League, because there's no relegation in hockey. The business model is not the same. And I would say that in English football, especially, a team like mine, Chelsea, were borderline insignificant for a long time. When they won the Premier League in 2004, they hadn't won a league championship in 50 years. 50 years. Does that sound familiar to a Leaf fan? 50 years?
Oh,
and when they won,
the gloves are coming off now.
Well, I'm just telling you. And then finally, they got a bunch of money in from a rich owner, and they finally won. And that's the beauty of football. A rich owner could buy your moribund, crappy club tomorrow and turn them around. And that's fine. But they have to earn it. They have to beat the Fulhams of the world. They have to beat Aston Villa. They have to beat West Ham. And sometimes they don't. And that's incredible. It's incredible to watch West Ham beat Manchester United on a Sunday. I cherish the memories of getting up early on Saturday when I was a kid to watch Chelsea on The Score. Remember that? They had the Premier League back then, and I would get up at 6 a.m. to watch soccer. My friends would all go, "What are you doing not sleeping in on a Saturday?" I'm like, "I want to watch Chelsea. I want to watch Didier Drogba and John Terry and Frank Lampard." And now the owner of my club that made all those incredible things happen is pissing all over that legacy, and that pisses me off. It's a joke to do this. We cannot let this happen. And what you asked earlier, will it actually happen? If it doesn't, they have to come down on all these clubs, including mine. I will gladly celebrate the desecration of the immediate future of Chelsea Football Club because of what these spineless cowards have tried to do to fans. Fans are at the heart of this. And the only reason Manchester United makes a ton of money is because of fans and away fans, Crystal Palace fans, Aston Villa fans, the lower tier clubs. They all come to your stadium to watch their team play and lose most of the time. But sometimes they win, and it's great. It's what makes European soccer great. And to take that away and ruin the development of the game worldwide is a disgrace, and that this cannot be allowed. All the clubs involved have to be deducted points. I'd even go so far as to say is to relegate them to the second league in their respective countries, and take away their ability to buy players for 2 years or more, and ban them from the Champions League. Chelsea is in the semifinals of the Champions League. They qualified last week. I genuinely hope they get kicked out.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. They're talking about doing it now.
Good.
You know, as I educated myself or attempted to educate myself doing a little research on the topic today, I came to one conclusion for me that I don't think it's going to happen. And I look at the gamble that is involved for these, multi-billionaire owners. What happens to these franchises if they leave, they try to do this, and suddenly it blows up in their faces. It doesn't work. They don't get the TV sponsor, the deals. They don't get the sponsors. What happens to their franchises? They're not going to be allowed to come crawling back. I can't see UEFA and
why should they?
No, and that's what I mean. I can't see them letting that happen. So for me, when I look at it from a risk versus reward thing here, there has to be somebody on their legal teams, on their financial teams that are saying, yeah, you're one of the 12 richest teams right now, but if this goes,
and I hope it does
it all. And I think in the end, when it boils down to it, that risk of potentially losing it all is what's going to put this dead in the water.
I'd just like to say this, to give one more example, and then harken back to some of the legacy that these people are lighting a fire and pissing all over. You hate the New England Patriots, and I understand why. Imagine Bill Kraft, the Packers ownership, the Rooneys, the Steelers. Imagine the 4 big NFL owners right now. I guess the Cowboys. Imagine they all got together. Sure. Yeah. Imagine the 4 big NFL owners right now got together and said, NFL, if you don't let the 4 of us, because we make the most money right now, if you don't let the 4 of us automatically qualify for the playoffs every year, we're going to leave and just play each other. That's what this is. That's what this is. Who the hell wants to watch 16 straight weeks of Patriots versus Packers? As good as those teams, well, one of them used to be, that's going to get boring. Hey? Yeah. I don't want to watch Chelsea Real Madrid every year. I don't want to do it. And I'll say this. There's a great movie out there. I think it's still on Netflix. Maybe it's on Prime, whatever. There's a great movie. It's just called United. And it's about the 1956, pardon me if I got the year wrong, United fans. It's about the 1956 Munich air disaster. Now, what that was in 1956 when the European Cup first came around, Manchester United at the time were invited to come play in it. It was a brand new competition. They wanted a team from England to come play. Manchester United were the defending champs. They invited them. The English Football Association said, no, you can't go because playing in that will affect your performance in our league. And Manchester United said, no, we're going to go. And they made it difficult for them, basically. The Champions League game was on Friday, and Manchester United had an English League game on Saturday. And their legendary manager, Sir Matt Busby, said, we're going to go play this game, and we'll just fly back right after the game, and we'll play tomorrow to appease you. They went and played the game. They tried to leave the Munich airport from a small little terminal, and it was really snowy. They tried to take off 3 times. On the 3rd attempt, the plane crashed and killed over half the team. It killed the pilots, the stewardesses, half the United roster, which was made up of kids. They were called the Busby Babes. They were a team of kids dominating English football. All those kids dead. A few lived and somehow mentally and physically recovered. Manchester United lost their whole team. Clubs and fans from around the country poured money in. This was when people were like really poor. England was in an economic downturn. Factories were closing. Fans sent in like £2, £3, whatever they could to help United get back on their feet and compete. Can you imagine what those dead United players and Sir Matt Busby are thinking looking down on this disgrace today? Shame on you. Shame on you, Joel Glazer, and all the other owners that are involved in this. Shame on you.
Well, folks, you heard it here first. Ryan is a huge supporter of the new proposed Super League.
I couldn't be more opposed to it. I'm sorry, guys. I know we talk about hockey and baseball and everything on here. I've been so angry for the past 24 hours and why it connects to our show. If you think that if this is allowed to happen, don't you dare for a second think that something similar can't happen here.
Absolutely. It could set a very dangerous precedent and get some other rich owners thinking. But like you said, we do have a different business model in our North American sporting leagues, and
good.
We don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, and good. It's good that it's different. But when you see people like this trying to just assault the passion of fans, this is not sports. This is not sports.
And in the end, I tend to agree with you. But we do love all the passion that all of our fans show us tuning in every week. We're going to wrap it up. Call this one an episode on that note. Ryan always bringing the heat. When he gets really fired up about something, he'll let you know.
Yes.
But huge thank you to Matt, our producer, behind the scenes in all of this. Huge thank you to the FHN Network, and thank you to Amateur Sports TV, ASTV, for the new partnership we've got here with the FHN Network. A lot of great things, a lot of great new things coming here our way with the new StreamYard production and having the interactive comments. So as the playoffs roll around, I'm sure that's going to get really fired up with some of Leafs Nation as soon as we start getting the word out there.
Good.
Ryan, as always, a huge thank you to you for your time being my co-host every week. Always a pleasure. And last but not least, huge thank you to the fans tuning in every week. Just remember, until next week, where there's smoke, there's
fire.
Make sure to check out our past shows from previous weeks on our YouTube, Facebook, or Mixcloud channels. You can always catch up on podcasts while checking out our FHN Network channel on YouTube or Facebook. Or you can listen to an audio copy of our past shows on our Mixcloud channel at FHN_Network. The FHN Network, the future of entertainment.